Hey guys, welcome back to Total War Warhammer. I am Indypride, playing as the Empire today, waiting patiently for my sweet, sweet Wood Elves, running with an Arch Lector on a Barded Warhorse as my Lord, because why the hell not? He doesn't get used very often. Wanted to see what he could do. 3 Great Swords as my Infantry Corps, and that glorious war machine known as a Steam Tank, that terror-causing metal monstrosity as the centerpiece of my army. Great accuracy with that cannon up front, decent melee capabilities, and of course, very tanky. Wait. You've seen this tactic from me before. 2 handgunners grouped with a light wizard who only has Net of Ammontok. One of my favorite spells in the game. Just has so much utility and can nullify aggressive play so well. And I'll need that kind of utility in this one because my opponent is going balls to the wall with a Greenskins rush army. Super aggressive melee rush build from him. He's got Crimson Killers, Regiment of Renown, with their area of effect attacks and insane stats. They'll be a serious threat in melee combat. He's got Black Orcs, he's got Big Uns, got Nasty Skulkers, one of the best meat shields in the game, armor piercing to a ton of damage, can rip stuff like Empire Spearmen in half, and he's got a Night Goblin Shaman with Itchy Nuisance and Sneaky Stabbin' for those AoE melee buffs and debuffs. Also has Skarsnik, Warlord of the 8 Peaks, don't get to see him too often, so this is just a really potent melee rush, and I don't exactly have a potent melee core, so it'll be interesting how this kind of settles out. Also has a big boss on a spider. Of course, those cause poison attacks and will slow down enemies. And the big boss is one of the most cost-effective hero choices in the game. I really don't like bringing Crimson Killers, and this is why. They're basically a magnet for enemy skirmisher and artillery fire. They're just a really juicy target. They're a huge threat in melee. They have low HP compared to a Black Orc, and they cost a crap ton of gold to field. So Net of Ammontok will hold them in place, while the Steam Tank and the handgunners rip them up. But I do make a mistake here. I clicked attack orders instead of moving up my handgunners all the way, and that means they're not going to be in the entire firing arc range, which means I didn't do as much damage to them with my handgunners as I should. You should really manually control them and then click attack orders once they're within range. But I'm going to get a nice volley into this Black Orc, do about 1,000 damage to them, and then I will have to start pulling away from the engagement, or I will be in trouble. And you can see here this massive melee force is coming in. He also has 2 Squig Herd and a Goblin Wolf Rider Vanguard deployed in my back lines. That is going to be a threat to my handgunners, of course, and could mess with my Light Wizard as well. Did a decent amount of damage to the Crimson Killers. That's a lot of gold. That's a big gold swing in my favor, honestly. Being able to take out almost half of a 1,400 gold unit is very, very nice. And now I'm going to start pulling away. He's going to do a very good move here with his Wolf Riders. It looks like he's charging the Steam Tank, but he's not. He's actually running straight past into the handgunners. Going to do a decent amount of damage here, but I am going to quickly overlap with my Spearmen. Didn't quite get my handgunners out of there in time. Not gonna be the biggest deal. You'll see I don't take too much damage from those Wolf Riders because I was pretty quick with my Spearmen, but not ideal. And then over here on my right flank, I do have the Royal Altdorf Gryphites Regiment of Renown, some of the finest knights in all of the Empire, currently waiting in ambush in the trees, and my opponent is wasting absolutely no time, getting right into melee where the Orcs and Goblins shine, and winning a straight-up grind in close combat in this game is going to be close to impossible. I need something to turn the infantry fight in my favor, so hopefully the Steam Tank and or the Demigryph Knights will fill that role. Got the Spearmen holding out against some Big Uns. It will not be a fun engagement for them, but Great Swords are coming in to reinforce. And then I have my Arch Lector running into melee, popping Faith's Bastion and Grand Shield of Faith. Both AoE buffs that increase damage resistance by 22%. So they will stack, and that will give him 44% damage negation to all my nearby troops, which will be pretty nice. Will help the Spearmen last a lot longer. Itchy Nuisance also going off, and he is going to miss the charge on his Orc Boys. Was not ready for that ambush, and my Demigryph Knights are going to munch through them in about 3 seconds. It's not an exaggeration. They are literally going to rout pretty much off the bat as soon as I charge in, and they will, I think they shatter, or at least they're pretty much gone at this point. I took 100 damage in that fight and cut through them like a hot knife through butter. So that was fun. In the back, the Squig Herd got into my back lines, but I popped Net of Ammontok, prevent them from charging into my handgunners. Gonna get some shots in, hopefully rout them, because they're not in melee combat, so their Squigs Go Wild will not activate and give them that unbreakable morale. And I still have my Steam Tank shooting in, but I am surrounded. My opponent is doing a good job of overwhelming me in the melee engagement, and I have made a mistake. I've gotten my Arch Lector too caught up in melee combat where the big boss and where Skarsnik can start stabbing him with their prodders, and that's going to be real bad for me because if I lose my Arch Lector, this game is going to be over in about 5 seconds. Like, there's no way I'm going to win this game if I lose my gen this early on. But I do have a huge hammer and anvil coming in with my Demigryph Knights, who are going to munch through his back lines, and this is exactly how Demigryphs are meant to be used. Take out the enemy cavalry really early on in the battle, and then hammer and anvil, and look as they start running for the hills. That fear kicking in, just sending everything running away, and as soon as they start breaking, I can run them down with my demis, or I can go in for another hammer and anvil on the main line. And I need those hammer and anvils because my great swords are not going to beat Black Orcs 1v1 in melee combat. Still have my steam tank in the back, firing in, getting some really nice shots. Already up to, I think, around 100 kills. It's done a lot of damage so far, and I still have a decent amount of ammunition left. But you can see my center has completely crumbled. Greenskins' melee force was just too much for my great swords and spearmen to handle, and that means I'm going to have to start getting creative with how I engage. I'm kind of holding with a couple units in the center. You can see my Arch Lector ran away, but he did rally. He has like only 800 HP left at this point. Crimson Killer's doing a lot of work in the center, but I still have a couple units in melee to use as anvils so that my Demigryph Knights can charge in from the rear and do some more damage. Itchy Nuisance is going to be a problem for them though. When they charge in, they will get debuffed, and that will make it a lot harder for them to do the damage they want to do. So time to pull out and make sure that I do not lose my demis. He doesn't have too much on the field that can counter them now. Doesn't have Board Boy Big Guns, which would have been a great choice in this game. The Big Guns are probably the most cost-effective cav unit in Total War Warhammer. Their armor piercing have bonus versus large, only cost 900 gold, but he did not bring them in this one, and that means there are very few threats to my Demigryph Knights. Yes, Big Guns have a bonus versus large, but he doesn't really have a great way of tying them down. Still though, this is really dangerous because most of my infantry is really beaten up at this point, and without some solid anvils to hold the enemy line in place, the hammers that are my knights will be taking more damage than I would like. And I need them for late game, so I can't really afford to let them just stay in melee and fight for a while. Balance bar is very much in my opponent's favor, and now I'm going to have to be very picky with the engagements I choose to take. I do have the steam tank. It is obviously very powerful, still has a decent amount of ammunition left, blowing some of those big guns and Black Orcs apart, but I need to pull it back, just kind of consolidate my forces and reevaluate how I want to take on these remaining engagements. So Steam Tank definitely needs to pull away from that engagement, and I did see an opening here. I have to get 100% have to eliminate my opponent's mobility, so I'm going to drop the Net of Ammontok and send in the demis and some spearmen to kill the remnants of his boar boys and the squig herd. If those are off the field, then he can no longer be a big threat to my remaining handgunners, which is really important because I need them in the late game as well to start picking apart, just kiting down my opponent. So boar boys and squig herd are top priority, and I will succeed in terrifying both and slaughtering the ones that don't pull away. So I think they're gone from the field now. Don't expect to see them coming back, but my light wizard is in a very threatened position right here. He's at this point mostly outlived his usefulness. I don't think I have many or any winds of magic left. I've casted an overcast Net of Ammontok 3 times, I believe, so maybe 4. So I don't know if he's going to be able to use that spell again. So he's probably going to get run down and killed in melee. We'll see if that happens. But my demis are now on routing duty, which means they will be clearing up all these routing greenskins, making sure they don't come back to the fight. I really can't afford to get sandwiched by greenskins that come back and charge in from the rear. But you can see he has a lot of melee forces left. Still has the remnants of his Crimson Killers. Still has Black Orcs, some nasty Skulkers. It looked like there were a couple Squig Herd in there as well. And the big guns. No, that's not. That's Gobbler. Gobbler is in there. Of course, Skarsnik is still alive, taking very little damage at this point. And the Night Goblin Shaman is still alive as well. Managed to shatter all these routing greenskin units in the back, which was really necessary. And now we can take a look at what I have left. Remnants of handgunners, some spearmen wavering in the back lines, coming back to the fight, and my light wizard was poisoned by the big boss, which means he's not going to be able to run away, and the nasty skulkers and big guns will pound on him until he dies. Rest in peace. You outlived your usefulness, good sir, but he was a very important unit in this battle. The Net of Ammontok was very useful on multiple occasions, let me do a lot of damage to his Crimson Killers, and prevented him from getting some really devastating charges into my handgunners with the Squig Herd as well. So again, definitely a big impact from the Light Wizard. Only costs like 675 gold when you only give him Net of Ammontok. It's a very cost-effective troop choice as well. Really love him. Steam Tank firing into that huge blob of Greenskin units, just eviscerating them as they try to close me down in melee. And I will have to do some serious kiting with my great swords. I don't want to fight in melee combat. Might have to sacrifice one of them, although I think it'll probably shatter to the big boss. Yep, they are gone now. And my Steam Tank will have to start entering melee because the big boss can poison my Steam Tank, which is a dumb mechanic in and of itself. It's a huge metal machine. There's no reason it should get poisoned, but if the Nasty Skulkers or the big boss hits the Steam Tank, it does get poisoned, which means it slows down, which means you can tie them up in melee. Arch Lector going into melee will be smacking orcs around with his Sigmarite hammers, and should be able to do decent in that engagement. But the big boss is here, and that is a big problem, because he only has about 800 HP left. The 675 is 679 now, and as he runs away, he's going to get poisoned, which means he's very slow, which means the big boss can catch up to him, and even the orc boys might be able to do some damage to him. So if he goes down at this point in the game when the balance bar is this far in the Greenskins' favor, serious issue. We'll see if the Arch Lector manages to survive. Demigryphs are still just causing so much terror and panic on the Greenskin line. They've gotten a bunch of kills this game, and handgunners now shooting into Gobla and Skarsnik, who, of course, do not have the most mobility in the Greenskin roster. They have a really funny run animation, actually, and they don't move very quick, but he is a armor-piercing beast in melee. The Steam Tank is still causing issues. Can actually terrify the Night Goblin Shaman. Try to run him down, but won't be able to kill him. And the Goblin Big Boss and the Orc Boys are chasing after my Arch Lector, and he is not going to finish the job. That was a mistake. There is no reason. He doesn't really need to send his Big Boss over here, really. I think that finishing off my General here would have been a really good thing for him, and given him a nice leadership buff, or not a leadership buff, but a leadership advantage in this game. And he's not going to finish off my Arch Lector, which will give him the opportunity to come back and maybe use those damage negation buffs again in a later fight. So he definitely should have focused on my Arch Lector in that engagement. He had the poison debuff on him, so there is no way my routing Arch Lector was going to be able to run away. Demi's murdering even more routing units, making sure, again, they do not come back to the fight, shattering all these units. Super important. It's also very frustrating in Total War Warhammer because unlike in Medieval 2 or previous Total War games, when you're running down enemy units, you can't just make them shatter instantly, and you don't get kills on them very quickly either. It takes a long time to run down opposing units and actually make them shatter, which means I'm wasting a bunch of time over there that would be better served with my Demigryphs on the front lines. Big Boss and Skarsnik are bashing on that Steam Tank, and that is very, very dangerous. Look at how low he's gotten at this point. Lord characters and hero characters will put the hurt on a Steam Tank, and I'm trying to pull away, but that's not a good thing because the Big Boss is poisoning him, which makes it really hard to pull away. The Big Boss is way faster than a poisoned Steam Tank. So if my Steam Tank goes down at this point, I've lost. And look at how low it is at this point. Balance bar, almost like it's 3/4 in my opponent's favor at this point. Things are looking very dire. Demigryphs coming in. They will be able to terrify that Goblin Big Boss. And I'll try to make sure he does not come back because that's one of maybe the most important unit on the field for my opponent at this point in the game. Because it has the mobility. It hits hard like Skarsnik does, but can actually run down opposing units and poison them as well. So, gotta make sure that I don't let the Goblin Big Boss come back. And now the Steam Tank is down to such little HP. 1v1ing Skarsnik. I need to pull him out of melee. Again, if that Steam Tank goes down, pretty much lost the Arch Lector. Thinking about going into melee. He's wavering right now. And I decide better of it. If he takes one hit, he's dead. So everything is on the edge of a knife at this point in the battle. Things are looking very grim for me. But my Steam Tank is still alive and it still has ammo, which means he can do damage to my opponent's characters, which are the most important things left on the field. Still terrifying that Big Boss, still making sure he doesn't come back, but the Night Goblin Shaman and Skarsnik are still alive. Haven't mentioned it yet, but this entire battle my opponent was kind of being a dick in chat. The first time I pulled away my handgunners before we started the melee fight, he told me not to run away. He just straight up said in the chat, don't run. And then progressively, as the battle went on, he got more and more agitated that I wasn't just sending in my Demigryphs and my Steam Tank with half ammo still left to die in melee, which is shocking, I know. It's almost like I didn't feel like squandering my mobility and my range advantage for absolutely no reason, which is just absolutely crazy. But, apparently any kind of kiting or repositioning was dishonorable in his eyes, and so multiple times throughout this game, while I was trying to outmaneuver or kite him, he'd call me a pussy for running away from him with my range units and my cav units. I don't know, the whole thing was kind of funny. Imagine using strategy in a strategy game. It really makes you think, right? But yeah, I thought it was pretty enjoyable seeing him get mad in chat. I wasn't trolling him or anything. I don't think there's anything dishonorable about what I've done in this game. Now, if I was completely out of Steam Tank ammo and just using the Steam Gun to run around the map for 15 minutes, that's one thing. But I still have handgunners, I still have my cav, and I think I've done a pretty decent job thus far of picking apart the remnants of what he has left. And I have started to turn things a little bit back in my favor. Balance bar is still in his favor, but I don't have to get my gen killed, don't have to get my Demigryphs killed. I can get a couple more shots in with the Steam Tank. Very soon gonna be out of ammo, at which point I will have to start committing my stuff. But I still have some remnants of greatswords, still have my demis, and still have those handgunners in the back, which can plunk away a pretty decent amount of HP. I don't have a lot of models left in them, but they're handgunners, and they are fantastic at killing single entity units like Scarsnake and like that Night Goblin Shaman. And I'm running him ragged at this point. Crimson Killer's trying to close into melee with the greatswords, which again, I don't feel like letting him just kill my greatswords for no reason, so I can just charge in with my Demigryphs and then pull out, and then the remnants of those black orcs will be dead. And things will be even greater in my favor. I will commit my greatswords here after that charge. Try to prevent the Crimson Killers from getting their charge bonus off. Kind of failed, although it didn't look like those Crimson Killers actually did a charge animation there, which is a little bit weird. But I think, oh yeah, one of them gets beheaded, and then they're going to run for the hills. I think I've got like one or two more cannon shots with my Steam Tank. Damage negation going off, Demigryphs going in, trying to get a big charge on Gobla and Scarsnake, who are not large, so I will not be able to do that extra damage from the bonus first large of the Demigryph Knights with halberds. But because it's all about Scarsnake's model, it's not, oh, actually Scarsnake just managed to kill one of the Demigryph Knights, which is a relatively big blow. But yeah, because the main model for Scarsnake is obviously Scarsnake himself. I think Gobla is just an attachment. So even though Squags are, I believe, counted as large, and Gobla is definitely large, his unit model is not classified as a large unit. So I am going to terrify the Night Goblin Shaman and try to run him down, which then leaves Scarsnake as the only unit left on the field. Now remember, my Steam Tank has 30 HP points left, so if he gets committed in a melee, which he will have to at some point, Scarsnake should be able to kill him. Demigryph Knights don't have a bonus for Scarsnake, which is a problem. Arch Lector charging in, trying to get a quick attack in, and then run away, because I don't want to lose him either. And again, the terrifying force that are the Royal Altar of Griffites should be able to shatter that Night Goblin Shaman for the last time. I can now ignore him, because he will not be coming back to the fight. No sense in killing him. That will turn the balance bar more in my favor. Still have the handgunners alive, and yes, at this point in the battle, can understand that he's gotten picked apart. I can understand his frustration, but if you're frustrated in a game, doesn't mean you have to be a dick in all chat. And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to hit him a couple more times with the steam gun, hit him a couple more times with my handgunners, and then charge in and try to finish him off. Face Bastion going off here. Charge in. Don't want to let my Arch Lector stay in there for too long. Steam Tank going in, Demigryphs going in, and the Steam Tank will go down, but it doesn't matter. The Night Goblin boss, Scarsnake, will get terrified, and I will take the game. After a very hard-fought battle, I would say that my opponent played pretty reasonably well in that one. Definitely gave me a challenge, and I had to pull out all the stops in the late game to finally pull it out. And he had a big advantage, but did not have the mobility. And his biggest mistake in that game was losing his mobility early on, the Squig Herd and the Boar Boys, and that meant that I could kind of kite him with impunity. You can see my greatswords did a bunch of work. Steam Tank and Demigryphs Killed it. 217 and 233 kills. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. See you next time.